One of the things that I keep hearing from people is that Hanna was a close call, and Hanna wasn't a close call. I mean, it wasn't as bad as some of the other hurricanes and tropical storms that we've seen, but Hanna was by far not a close call.
If you'll remember, Hanna started as a tropical wave out over Hispaniola on the 19th, somewhere around the 19th, and gradually just progressed to be this Category 1, almost Category 2 storm. This was the first storm to hit this area since Harvey. That was in 2017. Since then, we've had a lot of people move in. We didn't know if we were going to see things like panic buying, which thankfully we didn't. We saw a lot of people getting prepared early on, going about their normal routine. Lines at the pump were a little bit longer in some places, but you didn't see mass fuel buying. People were just filling up their cars, filling up gas cans for generators. Even as Hurricane Hanna on Friday night was setting offshore about 200 miles of Port Aransas, people were going about their daily business, just fishing, kind of just doing what they do ahead of a tropical storm or a hurricane. At noon on Friday, officials here in Corpus Christi and Nueces County restricted access to the beach so they could prepare. By Friday evening, I think it was pretty clear that people weren't going to pay attention to the orders, and they felt like they just didn't have to. And that went for tourists and locals alike. There's no doubt that it caused emergency managers some concern that people were ignoring the order. Large groups, small groups, people walking their dog, folks playing basketball, people exercising, especially down around McGee Beach. There were just crowds of people everywhere. But as far as the weather goes, Friday night's when we began to see a real change in things. You could tell that there was something in the air. I mean, by Friday night, you started to feel the first rain bands come in. The wind was starting to pick up somewhat. In my career, I've covered countless hurricanes, at least 8 or 10 that I can count right off the top of my head. And as there always is, there's this beautiful calm, this beauty that happens kind of right before all hell breaks loose. No doubt that was Friday night. Saturday morning, the day that Hanna was going to make landfall somewhere around Corpus Christi, I got up, started my coverage around 3:34 in the morning. Well, Saturday morning in a lot of ways felt like a more normal Saturday morning. People were still out running to the grocery store, trying to get last-minute supplies, getting donuts from the bakery, whatever. It seemed like a pretty normal day. But in some of the low-lying areas, you could see it, that the tide was starting to rise, places like Flower Bluff, Laguna Shores. Down at the marina, there was a light wind blowing. The tide was up a little bit. North Beach, because of the tidal surge, you could see it. North Beach is flood-prone anyway. So you can see the changes Saturday morning, yeah. And still again, even as Hanna loomed just offshore, there were the curious onlookers, ignoring the warnings. People who may not have been here for Harvey in 2017. Some folks wanted to just get a social media selfie. By 8 in the morning, there were a lot of people out, and they were ignoring the warnings, and they wanted to see what this felt like. A lot of people just wanted to feel the power of Mother Nature. They may not have ever experienced something like this element, and you can't blame them. It's a fascinating thing. But it's also a very dangerous thing, and that's something that a lot of folks just don't realize. By about 8 in the morning, the winds were picking up. The rain bands were starting to become more frequent. You could feel it. Hurricane Hanna now was coming ashore. By afternoon, Hurricane Hanna had a real eye on her, a real center of circulation. Those rain bands tightened up, and she was coming ashore just south of Corpus. One thing you'll notice is about noon, this pier is filmed from Swatner Park was still intact. Right around 2:30, 3 o'clock, we came back and was filming in that same area, and the pier was already starting to be destroyed. One thing we were able to do was get a before and after. Saturday morning on your left, and then on your right, you see the Sunday morning, and the pier was just torn to shreds. One thing that you noticed about Hurricane Hanna was the wind. At one point, we were out at 2644 and 286. We clocked a wind speed of right around 60 miles per hour. Right about that same time, over at Chapman Ranch, a miso nut site recorded a wind gust of 62 miles per hour. And the wind was everywhere, from the shoreline out to Chapman Ranch. Anywhere and everywhere was really not spared from the wind. As Hanna continued to rage on throughout the afternoon, people began losing power. Some of them were without power all the way through Monday. And it was frustrating, but people were prepared. Knowing how strong of a storm Hanna was is a real testament to the folks who maintain our infrastructure. While some people lost power, others didn't. Crews were able to get it restored pretty quick, even right in the middle of the storm. Some folks' power flickered. Our infrastructure teams did a fantastic job. That's why I say Hurricane Hanna wasn't a close call, it was a wake-up call for us. Sunday morning, after it was all said and done, the cleanup began. Sunday morning, you saw city crews, county crews, state crews, federal resources, individuals, everybody jumped together to help. Well, everybody knew that the cleanup was going to be long, hard. It was going to be just a real undertaking, as it always is. And Sunday morning, everybody came together to start doing just that. As it always is, right after a storm, people are just trying to take an inventory, take an assessment of how bad the damage really was. They were trying to get a handle on where to start, and people were immediately ready to start moving on. One thing that never ceases to amaze me is the resilience of people who live along the coast. One thing that never ceases to amaze me is resilience. People who live here on the coast have weathered storms for years, and they know how to bounce back every single time. Yeah, of course we saw damage. Luckily, thank heavens it wasn't as bad as Ike. But again, this was a wake-up call. This was a wake-up call to remind us. A wake-up call to remind us there's a cost to live here in paradise. To remind us that there's a responsibility to living here. To remind us of the dangers that we face living here on the coast. A reminder that we need to remain vigilant. A reminder that we need to be prepared. Socially, fiscally, politically, we need to be prepared to act. A reminder that not every day is going to be peaceful and calm. It was a reminder that while some of us were pretty lucky, and that not everyone was so fortunate.